Thank you. So, it's a really warm and damp morning, and I'm walking the short distance from my house to the hospital, which I've been working with the last couple of weeks or months. And if you were close to me, you would see that I have a very firm face, and I'm walking really fast, so I work with a fast pace as well, because we have some serious problem. Number one, we are not making any money. In fact, I happen to know that we could not pay our bills on time the last month, and we've been forwarding salaries from the cashier's pocket. Number two, the salaries that we do pay are below the minimum standard in the city, which is an offense. And number three is that we found out that the operational permit to even have a hospital was not renewed since 1 year ago. I'm really curious also because I've been out of town for a couple of weeks, so I want to see how the new project is progressing. And when I enter the lobby, something really strange strikes me, because there's buckets all over the lobby collecting water dripping down from the roof above. And when I look up, I see big stains of mold. This here, that's our X-ray machine, and that's a 100-liter bucket. How could that be? How could it be water from the second floor? I go out again and I'm greeted by this look. What's missing from this picture? There's no roof. But this is strange. It's been raining every day for 10 days straight, I happen to know. So I rush back in and I see more and more disturbing signs of this hospital being in dire straits. This is our pharmacy. I'm no electrician, but water dripping into the electric fuse box, not good. Even Jesus has mold on him. So now I grab some guts and I go up to the second floor, and this is what I see. The roof has practically fallen in. It looks like a tsunami or an earthquake, and everywhere I go, I see more and more disturbing signs of the disaster. This constitutes about 60% of the beds that we have in the hospital that are devastated beyond recognition or repair. And at this point, the sight is too much for me. So I'm in these clothes, and the only thing I just feel myself going down to my knees, and tears starts to fall down my cheeks. The only thing we could do really was to start to dig. That was the only thing that felt real. So I actually started to dig with my bare hands in the beginning before we even had a shovel, because we needed to get this out of the hospital fast. But as we were digging, in the back of my head, I had one thought. This hospital is dead. There's no returning from this. Hello, welcome to this story about how Kanban saved a hospital in Indonesia. It took a hospital that had no money, undermotivated staff, paid the wrong salary, and had no operational permit and no roof, and made it into a profitable organization that made money every day, had a motivated staff, had an operational permit and a roof in about 1.5 years. And the driver behind all of this was Kanban. And I'm very honored and humbled to be a small part of this transformation. So my name is Hammarberg. I work for a small consultancy called Aptitude in Stockholm. I have one wife, 2 hobbies, and 3 kids. I've been a developer since '98. But I've been more and more interested in how you work effectively together using agile methods such as Scrum or lately Kanban. This, by the way, this is the best Kanban book I ever written. You should get it. And if you use that code at manning.com, you can get all their books for 40% off this. So this is commercial time. Yeah, there we go. Everyone is okay. So you could wonder what a guy like me from Sweden is doing in Indonesia. Well, me and my wife, we took 2 years sabbatical and moved to Indonesia to work for the Salvation Army there. And they have 6 hospitals and 17 clinics spread throughout the country. And we were living in a city here called Bandung, a small city of about 10 million people. So bigger than Sweden. When I started to tell this story to people, I realized that I could go on for hours or even days, so I need some kind of rails to hold on to, and I picked the foundational principles and practices of Kanban to do this. So we will go through all of this, because it turns out, when I look back, that we did all of this. I didn't know that at the time, and the hospital staff did most certainly not know it, because I didn't even mention Kanban to them at any point. So that means that I have 3 goals with this presentation. First of all, I want you to be inspired maybe by this. Second of all, I want you to learn something about Kanban. And third of all, maybe I want to scare you if you're running a hospital. Okay, the first foundational principle is really easy, and especially when the roof of a hospital falls in, you need to start where you are. For us, that was easy. It was, is it even safe to be in here? And it was not, because when I was digging, at one point in time, I leaned against the wall, and the whole wall so the whole wall went back and forth. So it was not safe. We needed to find a way to secure that before we could continue. But we didn't have time to talk about new responsibilities or roles or processes like that. We just had to start to do something quickly, or this hospital's entire existence would be over. A man walks up to a taxi in London, and he asked him, how do I get from here to Piccadilly Circus? And the cabbie responds, ooh, that's really hard. I would not start here. That would be stupid, right? This is where we are. Starting here, this is what we do. So how could you not start where you are, you might ask? Well, in our case, that's super easy, and it manifested itself in an age-old ritual called the blame game. Who is to blame for this disaster? That was the first question in every meeting we had. So I actually created a tradition of a not list. These are the things that we will not talk about in this meeting. Really handy tool, by the way. And on top of that list, every time I wrote, who's to blame? We will not talk about who's to blame. Because I'm sorry, we are here. And we need to get out of here, otherwise we will die. I don't care where we started. I just want to be better. And that actually makes me feel a little bit like this, because now I can meet any organization. We start where you are. I don't want to introduce you to any new tools or anything like that. Let's start where we are and find a better way, a brighter future. The second principle of Kanban is simply visualize. We visualized many things over the time I was with the hospital, but I wanted to relate one specific story that made a huge impact, and also the only time in my life when I saw 70 people drop their jaws at the same time. We had many problems, as I said, but we realized very soon after we cleaned out the hospital so it was safe to be there again, we realized that money was number one. In fact, I learned in hindsight that the hospital was about 6 weeks out of bankruptcy. It was a good thing that I didn't know that when I went in, because I would not have dared to touch anything. So most people was aware of this problem. We were 120 people, and we had on average 5 patients in the hospital. So they felt, yeah, this is a problem. But they all seemed to think that it was someone else's problem. That's management problem. They will fix it. So I needed a way to not only make them understand that, but also make them feel what we were up against. And I got together with a finance guy in my team, and we tried to calculate it. How much money does this hospital need to earn every month in order to break even, or even run with a little profit? But this is Indonesia, and Indonesia rupees is, I mean, you can't even, I don't even know how to pronounce that. So we broke it down, but even if you break it down per day, it's still like 12 million rupees. When the ladies in the laundry, they were earning 1 million rupee per month. So it didn't really make any sense for them. So we translated it into something else. So we translated it into how many services, how many patients do we need to serve each day? So if you come to the hospital, meet the doctor, have some blood test taken, and then get some drugs, that's 3 services. How many of those? And we created a diagram like this and said, we need 134 in order to run with some profit. And then I did something that was super scary for the director, which was a young woman called Dr. Lilian. And I told her, you need to tell everyone how we're doing. And I put them in front of the entire staff, and I said, now tell them. And we were not doing good. Here's the target, here's us. What do you think the reaction was when I showed them this, when they was seeing this? Yeah, about that. No reaction. It was like that, or someone was playing with their phone. I saw two persons were like giggling. So at this point I got really angry, and you can see that it's angry because I misspelled it. So I drew a new line here. This is the break-even point. And I told them every day we're below that money, below that line, we lost money by having the hospital open that day. That was the point when everyone understood it. Because all of a sudden they realized, oh, I actually had some people that worked in this hospital that could not read or write, but they could still understand above, good, below, bad, right? And we were doing really bad every day for many years. Something is wrong. So what happened here? Well, there's a lot of moving parts here, but first of all, we started where we are. We told the story as it was. We showed great transparency. We made the thing visual. We focused on indicators and trends. And we actually summarized all of these tricks in something that we call the visualization code. You know the pirate code from the Pirates of the Caribbean? It's more like a guideline than a code, right? So if we want to change it, we change it, okay? So here's the Rumah Sakit Bungsu, which means the Bungsu hospital, visualization pirate code. First of all, it needs to be big. I made an error here because I'm about 30 centimeters taller than the average Indonesian person. So I drew the diagram so big that no one could reach the top. Now, here in the beginning, that was not a problem, but I'll show you a picture later where that became a problem. But everyone needs to see it, and everyone needs to understand it. Money didn't really take. They didn't understand that. Number of people walking through our door, they understood that. We should focus on trends rather than individual numbers. I don't care if it's 76 or 84. Is it going up or is it going down? We visualized some other things where we forgot to set a target. This is where good is. And that became irrelevant really, really fast. So we need a target as well. And finally, we realized that we need something that moves fast. We could have done this on a monthly basis, but then we have lost interest in one day. Now we actually updated this every day, and you could almost hear the tension when someone was going to plot the numbers for today. Yay! Or no, like that. So it was building a team out of these people. All right, moving on. Limiting work in process. So that means doing fewer things at the same time. How going to do that when you're rebuilding a hospital? Well, that is a little bit tricky. Because remember where we were, just to jog your memory. We lost about 50 to 60% of our beds. We didn't have any money, so we didn't have time to rebuild the entire second floor. And we didn't have any space to put other patients in. Or did we? So with these constraints in place, we started to think a little bit more creatively. And we actually found a place because we could move other rooms around and take some, for example, we had an emergency unit that we didn't need for a shorter period of time. We could send these patients to another place. So we shuffled some patients around and actually created some space. Here's a few of the patients that we shuffled around. This is my favorite room. I went there every morning to see the newborns. That's amazing. And here's where we're shuffling the ICE unit around. We don't need that. So we're moving this around a little bit to create more space. And all of a sudden, we took some of the urgency out of the problem because we created now a little bit of slack in the system. So we could now focus on the second floor. All of this was the pictures you saw before, destroyed beyond recognition. And everyone wanted to rebuild it because they wanted it to look nice, right? Build it as before. It needs to look nice. But what we realized is that we don't have time. It will take 9 months to rebuild that, and we didn't have any money either. So we need to limit the number of rebuilds in process. So what we did was that we focused on this central part here, because it turns out that if we cut the corridor off here, we still would have access to a stair up here and an elevator, and we could close the corridor here. And when we did that, they started to think freely, because first they were like, okay, we're going to rebuild this exactly as it was. But now we changed some of the ways that they thought. So they said, let's take this wall down and we create one big space for lower class patients. There's a class system of patients, you pay less, you have simpler service. But we could have a big space here that would be easier to monitor. So we built quite a lot, and the before and after shot is amazing. Here's the day where we're cleaning up the hospital, and this is the day after. So see how we have one big space here with many patients lying in. I've taken this panoramic photo from a nurse desk here, so they can monitor all these beds at the same time. We didn't put any walls in, which means that cleaning was much easier. Many good things that came out of them thinking differently, because we were not thinking, let's rebuild the thing that we had, but rather, let's play with the constraint that is in place. Interestingly enough, it took more than a year, way after I left Indonesia, before anyone thought about rebuilding this, or this. So for more than a year, this was quite enough. What if we spent a lot of money building that way before? Yeah, I know what would have happened. We would have had many empty beds because we didn't have enough patients. There was no need to have many rooms here with no patients in them. We had enough space as it was. So 1 year after, they took this down, and I tell you what they did about that in the end of the talk. If you just limit the number of things in process at the same time, you will experience some pain. You will introduce some difficulties in your process. So it's when you manage for flow that you will gain from your whip pain. I thought that was really catchy, but no one else did that, so that's 0 retweets on that one. Well, in this area, we didn't do anything that is particularly strange for an agile audience like this. We had morning meetings, we had a board, we had focus on finishing things, stop starting, start finishing kind of mindset. Here's how it looked. It's the most amazing morning meeting room I've been in. It's a church. So this is the director, and here's she telling us how it went yesterday, and here's the board with the things that we are doing every day. We are not using Post-its because they are very expensive in Indonesia. We could not spend money on this. So that was not very different, but something was really strange to them, and that was me. Well, I was strange basically everywhere I went in Indonesia, being white and tall, being a man. This hospital had about 90% of the workers there were women. And also the really strange thing about me was that I had no authority. I was just an advisor. That's really strange in Indonesia. It took about 3 months before they really understood. So if he says something, should we do that? Should we not do that? What is that about? And also, I know nothing about managing a hospital. I have no medical skills at all. So I came in there and I just said, we need to do this together. I didn't do that because I'm very humble. I did that because I don't know how to do this. So it came out of necessity. We needed each other to do this. But what I said was, I promise you that we will make this. I would not be here if I didn't think so. So I will help you to do stuff in a better way, and you tell me how we're going to do this. And after a couple of months, it actually turned out to become a really good thing that we worked on together. Another of the Kanban processes is called principles. It's called Manage Process Policies Explicitly. This is a little bit hard to digest, so I want to tell you a story about that. We did this with the visualization and everything, but I want to tell a story about a very special lady. The lady in black here, her name is Ibo Elchi. And she's the general manager of this hospital, which means that she's in charge of everything that is not finance or medical stuff, which is a lot in a hospital. There's food, they had a place for sewing clothes and washing, they had drivers, they had security. So basically, if you needed anything done, they had maintenance. If you needed anything done, you need to go to Ibo Elshi and she will fix it. She came to me and a friend of mine and was devastated because she had so much to do that it's the most stressed person I ever met in my life. I had to physically hold her on a chair for the meeting that we had. She said, "Can you help me?" And I had to hold her down on a chair. And she said, like, spend my days running around in the hospital trying to get things done, and every time I go into a room, I get more to do. Anyone been there? You recognize this? Yeah. Work just keeps piling up. And these people around them here, bless them, but they were really angry with her. Because especially when it comes to maintenance, nothing got done. You're just supposed to change this lamp, but still, it takes forever. You been there, sir? Yeah. So we decided, my colleague Dina Oli and I decided that we're going to help her. And we did some very simple things. The first thing we did was actually something that has degenerated. We held a morning meeting now, and every day we were changing the agenda for Ibo Elshi. So I took one of my few direct decisions in the morning meeting, and I said, from now on, no one in here talks about maintenance. Ibo Elshi, we trust you to do that for us. And she said yes. And you come back on Fridays and you report to us what happened and if you have any questions. So now that was off the table, which was a real blessing because at this time the management team was discussing like what kind of net is the best net to keep rats out of the sewer. Which order should the doctor's names be outside? What color should, it was crazy. So Ibo Elshi, you take care of that, good. And we could focus on some good things. The second thing we did for Ibo Elshi was to have some structure and communication for her day. So we said this first hour you go around the hospital and you ask people for stuff to do. Before she was spending her whole day doing that. When that hour is up, you go back to your office. We time boxed that period for her. And then you have a morning meeting with your staff. And in that morning meeting, you give them 3 things to do, not more. And when they are done with those 3 things, they come back to you and you give them 3 more. And they cannot work on anything else. And when I said this, something really strange happened because she looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. And she just said, "Can I do that?" Yes, you can do that. That's called being a professional. Don't do as much as possible. Do fewer things at the same time. This is the best advice I can give you. Do fewer things and complete them before bringing on something else. The last part was when we actually made the policies explicit. So before, of course, people got super frustrated, so they went around Ibo Elshi and they went directly to the maintenance staff. So now on, we told the staff, you don't work on anything that is not written on this yellow slip. And we told Ibo Elshi is the only one that have those yellow slips. So if you needed anything done, you had to go to Ibo Elshi. So what about the outcome for this then? Well, after 3 days, I got really worried because Ibo Elshi came to me and she said, "I have nothing to do." And I was, oh, okay, something has gone seriously wrong here. But I thought, okay, let her rest. We'll get a report on Friday. We didn't get the report on Friday because there was a public holiday. Indonesia has 35 public holidays, so if you want to, yeah. We have 6 weeks vacation in Sweden, but hey, 35 public holidays. So we had to wait for 2 weeks for her first report. And just before she was up, I asked someone next to me, how many maintenance things do they normally do? And they said, yeah, in a week, maybe 2, 3. Okay, 2 weeks, 6. I was hoping for 8, 10 would have been amazing. Ibo Elshi reported 46 items completed, where they previously did 6. It was the best morning meeting in my life because everyone was like filled with joy and were almost not believing their eyes when they heard her report it. And it took so long actually that I found presence of mind to snap a little movie out of this. So I will show you that now. And I want you to pay close attention to these people here around her. This is Ibo Elshi. Here's when she's reporting number 22 to 26. And remember that the people around her, they used to hate her. Okay, so we can watch that again. I will narrate it for you. So see, look at these people. They are like in disbelief. And here's when she's calculating the next thing, enumerating the next thing. Remember that lamp? Sudha, Sampurna. It means finished with excellence. And everyone was amazed to see that. So what happened here really? Well, first of all, the thing that happened was that we uncovered the true potential of Ibo Elchi. We gave her room to be the awesome person she was. And we did that with some really simple things. We moved the authority to the information. So we said, Ibo Elchi, you're in charge of this. Secondly, we showed her trust. I trust you to do this. You tell us, how it went by reporting. And you are accountable for this. This is important for us that you do these things. We made the policies around this very explicit, and we limit the working process to a short list of number of things. I wanted to tell a final story. About a week later, when we were doing the morning stand-up, right after, Ibo Elchi came up to me and she said, your arm has come untied. So the shirt, the stitches here had gone up and it fell down. Oh, thank you, I'll fix that later. No, I used to be a sewing lady, I can do that for you. Yeah, but you're the general manager of the hospital. I have time. So she took me to her crammed little office. It was like this big. And it was 32 degrees warm, but still she took off my shirt and she wrapped me in a nice blue blanket. And I sat there. And her English was really bad and my Indonesian was not really good either. So conversation was slow. But we shared such a special moment where I felt like she was thanking me. Saving her from a pretty horrible life. And this is the shirt, and I'm never letting go of those stitches again. Yeah, Ibo Elchi. Here's another principle of Kanban. Initially respect roles that are in place. That goes hand in hand with start where you are. During the entire time of this story, we didn't hire a single new person. Some people quit, we didn't fire anyone. Only 2 weeks after we started to measure, something amazing happened. Remember this? See this? All of a sudden, we had a huge spike there. That's because there was some really easy pick, some low-hanging fruit. Then a month later, we actually broke 134. And finally, some days were ridiculously good. This is the day when I had to bring a chair up for them to reach, because the diagram was so big. See that mark here? That's when we passed break-even point on average. This happened about 6 months after we started. So that means that the hospital made money every day. It was a watershed moment, but I was the only one tracking averages, so I was like, they were totally silent in the room when I calculated it, and I just went, woohoo, across the entire room. So we had some things to celebrate, but that opened a really interesting question. Now we were tracking number of patients, which is essentially income. So I asked the director, what are you going to do with all the money? And she said, yeah, we need money. Yeah, but when is it enough? Because we are about to break every record you ever set for yourself. You already broke even. So we started to think, what's the goal of the hospital, really? Well, of course, we want to cure patients. We need to make money. Yeah, I totally understand that. And we need some happy staff as well, otherwise this will not stay. But there should be something about quality in there, shouldn't there? So we borrowed something called a balanced scorecard, which is basically trying to balance many things. Before, we were just tracking this. Now we added also medical quality and staff satisfaction. And we did something more, because this is a Salvation Army hospital. So we added another parameter here. Because surely it should be reflected that the Salvation Army is a church. I had no idea how to track that. And to be honest, that's about the most intangible thing I can think of to track. So I can recommend a good book here called How to Measure Anything, which talks exactly about this. And we actually started to track stuff within these four. areas. And we used the same kind of thinking like we did with the visualization code. So we tried to find, for everything that we did, we tried to find some way of visualizing a metric. How are we doing? I'm out of time soon, so I will not tell you what we did around pastoral quality. But here's one thing that we did around quality. Starting to track it, simple, like NPS. Are you happy with your stay today? This is the final one. Improve collaboratively, evolve experimentally. Because after about 1 year, something really strange happened. We were making money because our income was above our cost. But someone told us that we took too high prices, so we needed to lower our incomes. That's sadly common in Indonesia. And the minimum salary that we paid was adjusted every year, so we now needed to increase. And this was a really sad position to be in, because now we already tried everything. We did all the simple things. So now no one really knew how to improve. So what we ended up doing was to change our board. Here's the cluttered board, and we changed it into the new columns here. And the first thing is in Indonesian, apa. In Swedish, that means monkey. But in Indonesia, that means what. What are we trying to achieve here? For example, we want more patients to the hospital. We were still in that position. Kenapa means why. Why do we need to do this? Yes, we need money to run our hospital. And from that, it was quite easy to formulate a hypothesis. For example, we could say something like this. We think that if we have more operations in the hospital on a daily basis, we will get a total more number of patients that goes up. And then it was super easy to devise a couple of experiments. How are we going to try this? How are we going to try to see if there's more patients coming here? How about if we go to that big hospital and ask them to send the patients that they cannot operate during a day for simple operations to us? Okay, let's try that. There's many methods around this. Lean startup and popcorn flow is 2 of them. But we ended up in a place which was pretty amazing, because for everything that we did, we had a diagram here. And one day, the director went up to the board and she said this. So from what I can see, the number of patients are not increasing, although the number of operations are increasing. So she erased the experiment column, and she turned to the staff, and she said, "What do you want to try now?" So now they were evolving experimentally together. I have about 3 minutes left. Can I do that?
1 minute.
Okay, I'll do it really fast. I wanted to end this with something very different. This is most of the staff in the hospital, and this is the last day I was in the hospital. After this, I left, and I'm not returned yet. When we went from this point, they all formed a line, and we all hugged, which I kind of expected. But the thing that I did not expect was what they whispered in my ear, because they were all whispering the same thing. And they said this: "You were friendly. You wanted to help us. You helped us even though we were not good." They were not expecting that. They were expecting someone to come there and shout and tell them what to do. I could not do that because I don't know how to do that, first of all, and I don't know how to run a hospital. So in this weakness, we found strength together. And that was, if I brought anything, I brought that to the hospital, some love and understanding. And with that, I say thank you. There's a book, if you want to buy it. I have a few copies with me. Thank you so much. 200 member Katiana. God bless you.